Gràcies a tothom.
Thank you.
Our wonderful partners in this SER project from the Busluza Project Foundation and from the University of Bologna for their kind presentations. I'm pretty sure we will have more time during this day and maybe tomorrow to keep reflecting on your projects as well. I have the pleasure to present the next panel. The first of the three panels that we have prepared for this conference, which is focused on art and dissonant heritage. And we will have with us three experts in the subject. First, we will have Daniel Rico, later Horst Hoheisel, and then Sanjin Mihelic. So starting by Daniel Rico, he's a professor, I switched to Catalan, is Professor of Historia.
He's a professor history of art at the Autònoma University of Barcelona, when he's currently directing the Department of Art and Musicology and the collection of essays, The Mirror and the Lamp. He has been director of medieval studies, wide and transversal research, combining the Middle Age with cultural heritage. He has recently published Who is Afraid of Francisco Franco? Memory, Heritage and Democracy, published by Anagrama editorial.
Art historian who has several interests of research, not all of them devoted to dissonant heritage, but which has been lately doing research on this matter. So, Daniel, you have 20 minutes for your lecture. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's okay, the microphone, yeah? You hear me, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me, for the confidence, to all the organizers, Ricard, David, Jordi, Fernanda. Let me start with this diagram that I will put now from the international project Contested Histories in Public Spaces, where we can see different strategies for dealing with dissonant monuments. You can go there better, not because you will take those equally. We can see here different strategies for dealing with dissonant or uncomfortable monuments. They are arranged along a spectrum from the most conservative to the most radical. And at both extremes, we find what we often see in public debate, that is to say polarization. On one side, on the left side, inaction, the idea of leaving things as they are, typically defended by those who want to maintain the status quo, whether out of indifference, of fear, of political interest, it doesn't mind. Perhaps this stance should be fit better in the right wing, at least in Western countries or in Spain. And on the other side, on the right side, we find removal or even destruction. That means not just taking monuments down, but refusing to show them anywhere else, not even in museums. Now, although these two positions or stances are completely opposite, I think they have something important in common. They both, in my opinion, they both avoid the ghosts of history in public space, which is probably public space one of the most proper places to do so, to discuss or to confront the black part of history. Personally, well, I think that in the end, these are two different ways of doing the same thing, that is nothing. Removing means, in a certain sense, to hide the past, hiding the past, and retaining can be interpreted as hiding from it. Personally, I find it difficult to support either stance. I believe that the only way to come to terms with the darker past of history, as with any trauma, even personal traumas, is to face them head-on, not to hide them. And I want to congratulate to give my congratulations to both projects, Bulgarian and the Italian ones, because these are very difficult heritages. Of all dissonant heritages, these are probably the most difficult to deal with. Because they try to face this dark history head-on. That's not to say, of course, that removal is never justified. Sometimes it is, mainly when a country is saturated of monuments that glorify a problematic past. Think of the United States and its Confederate monuments. Removing some of them may actually help ease social tensions, especially today, in our time, with rising polarization and the rising of the right, or the far right, ideologically. But I think there's a big difference between partial removal and total erasure. Take the example of Richmond, Virginia, where in the months after Floyd's murder, in 2020, up to 8 Confederate monuments came down from the famous Monument Avenue and surrounding area, those marked in red. The map shows the situation of July 2020, with only the statue of General Lee, the famous General Lee, here in black, in the center of the avenue, still standing. But in 2021, just 1 year later, that monument came down too. So in less than 2 years, the entire monumental memory of Confederacy had vanished from city center. This seems to me a bit excessive, even accepting that radical cleansing was necessary here. We have to remember that Richmond was once the capital of the Confederacy. I personally think that at least the Lee statue could have been preserved. But I mean preserved as it was in July 2020, so covered in Black Lives Matter graffiti, standing as a witness of to both a racist past and its present repudiation, symbolizing at once domination and emancipation. It also would have served as a powerful counterpart to Wiley's statue, which was unveiled just a year before Floyd's murder in 2019. Wiley's work represents a young black on horseback, and that is directly replying the toppled equestrian statues of Confederate generals. Now, obviously, in its solitude, Wiley's statue has lost at least part of its full meaning. The scenario, the picture, as it was in July 2020, with this symbolic confrontation between past and present, between past embodied by Lee's monument and present embodied by graffiti and the Black Rider, with that symbolic clash between memory and history, perfectly illustrates the idea of critical conservation that I have in mind and that I want to defend here. It is this kind of conservation, it could be called also admonitory conservation, observación admonitoria. It's a kind of conservation more interventionist than traditional one. One that introduces negativity, I mean productive negativity, into the usually positive, celebratory culture logic of cultural heritage, which often only preserves the good side of history, but not the black one or the bad one. No, so history viewed through an idealized and sometimes elitist lens. Note that what was lost with the removal of Lee's monument was not just a monument honoring the Confederacy, but according to the New York Times in October 2020, the most influential work of American protest art since the World War II. So the same monument that once glorified the lost cause was now viewed as an emblem of Black Lives Matter movement and as a sort of pilgrimage site for anti-racist activism. By removing General Lee, I am convinced that Richmond has lost a powerful educational tool and also a powerful site of conscience, as is usually said nowadays. Instead, preserved in its 2020 state, covered in graffiti and in these Wodishko-like light projections, stripped of any commemorative power, so to say, killed by anti-racist protests, the 19th century honorific monument and its commemorative dimension would have become historical in the strictest sense of the word. Historical, I mean obsolete, dead, a ruin, representing a bygone era. That means historical in the strictest sense of the word. An historical artifact exhibited, however, as an admonitory monument, as a manual, as what Germans call a manual. Just by retaining, in fact, the mark of this symbolic murder, the weapon of the murder, which are graffiti. So we could say that critical conservation can be also considered as a kind of murder. Strangely, the result is in fact a living monument. This historical monument is in fact a living monument. I mean that the relic, it is a relic of history, but a living history. So in this sense, it's more relevant for Richmond people, the citizens of Richmond, and for democracy itself, than just a dead monument. Of course, partial critical conservation can take many forms. Some are modest, like adding historical plaques on the second photograph on the left, second image on the left. Others are more radical, like moving monuments to cemeteries or to museums. But I advocate for this central part of the range, the spectrum of possibilities, and for something more, for something bolder, namely keeping monuments in situ, in place, so preserving its documentary value, its historical value, but intervening artistically. I'm convinced that this is more effective than any plaque or museum at raising awareness. A very good example of this idea is the project published in Art Forum in 1992 by the artist team Komar and Melamed in response to the wave of monument destruction in post-Soviet Russia. This was later, next year or 2 years later, was shown as an exhibition in Moscow, and it produced a catalog, this one with this name, Monumental Propaganda. Responding to post-socialist iconoclasm, Komar and Melamed proposed neither to worship nor to destroy, but to transform without giving up conservation. As they properly said in the race, the red phrase, the phrase mark in red, to leave monuments at their site in situ and transform them through art into history lessons, making it clear that conservation doesn't necessarily mean celebration or ratification. In the same prologue to the exhibition catalog, they suggested some interesting and amusing ideas, as for example, adding bronze figures, sculptures, to Sanjin's statue. Felix, the name is, I cannot pronounce it. You know all. Who is he? Who was it? Him. Adding bronze sculptures of the protesters who pulled down the monument in 1991 as a visual metaphor of contested history. Similar, just like Banksy's proposal for preserving Colston's statue in Bristol. With this, he proposed this idea with this little drawing and this text spread by himself on social networks. Another idea, in this case for Lenin Mausoleum, was very simply turning the Lenin name into Leninism, just adding three letters to Lenin. It's a very small gesture, but one that transforms completely meaning, turning Lenin's tomb into a grave of his ideology, of Leninism or even of communism. This kind of minimalist approach that contrasts with the bigness of the monuments, the original monuments that are contested, recalls me the recent intervention by Holzknecht and Bernardi in the former Casa del Fascio in Bolzano, Italy. This team of artists added this phrase from Hannah Arendt in 3 languages, and no one has the right to obey, to the fascist relief of the facade, directly confronting Mussolini's image and the slogan, the fascist slogan, credere, obbedire, combattere. Believe, obey, and fight. Reversible and placed at a distance that allows that sculpture, that the relief to be built without obstruction. Arendt's phrase undermines the authority and the glorifying intention of the monument, but without destroying it. It's much like Bodichko light projections, in fact, or like Clemente Bernat here in Spain, photographic interventions on Francoist monuments, which are defeated or defaced and abased at the same time by ordinary urban objects like this sign, this traffic sign that defaces the Arc of Moncloa in Madrid. Critical conservation must be critical, of course, yes, but also conservationist, not conservatist, conservationist. It must be also conservation, I mean. It's not the same as more radical transformations as this one, very famous, like the Lenin transformed into Darth Vader by Alexander Milov, or as Carlos Colombino remodeling of Alfredo Stroessner, a sculpture or monument, a statue in Paraguay, nor is like to temporary cloaking actions such as those by Joiri Minaya, a Dominican artist, which hide colonizing monuments entirely. These examples are better described as memory art, the art of memory, as Horst, Hoheisel, I really don't know how to pronounce your surname, but as Horst will later discuss. This is more, this is not critical conservation, but an art of memory. Critical conservation fits better with Bruno Latour's idea of iconoclash, where in iconoclash there's a clash of images where the old image don't disappear or doesn't disappear. Rather, it reappears in a new and more complex way, layered with new meaning. The old monument coexists with its current critique, the old image with our modern judgment about the old image. It's like a picture within a picture where the past and the present overlap. It's like a history picture inside a memory picture. A fascist monument inside an anti-fascist representation of it. This is also the case of many anti-monuments, like this one, the little one by Matthias Pfund in Neuchâtel, Switzerland, made in response to the statue of David Lepoury, an 18th century businessman and philanthropist. In Bolzano, history and memory are overlapped, and here they are juxtaposed side by side. Pfund has also added here in the bottom a new marker, or a kind of anti-marker as the anti-monument. An anti-marker next to the original plaque which has also, which is preserved even with some traces, green, the green color and the red color, traces of earlier graffiti, modern graffiti. So avoiding the fetishization of past, typical of classical conservation practice, conservation and restoration practice. In conclusion, not erasure, no glorification, but coexistence, just coexistence, intention of two visions of the same monument. It's a kind of contentious coexistence where the monument's old image and its value as historical document lives in conflict with its modern moral judgment and its ability to symbolically repair the victims. This is not iconoclasm. This is not, of course, iconodulism or celebration, but is a sort of iconomachia, which could be a translation in Greek or in Spanish or not, in Romance languages of iconoclash, which is more difficult to translate. This is a battle of images, but a battle where destruction and construction meet. And in doing so, they build a place that defends the right to memory, but at the same time, the right to history, which both are the same right to the city that we have, all citizens and people. and that's all. I don't know if I have surpassed the 20 minutes, or more or less I've been exact. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel, for your interesting presentation. It is always good to hear something brave about this intense debate on if preservation is better than demolition, or, as he just shown us, many other types of interventions on this difficult heritage. So we are going to our next expert. I will present you Horst Hoheisel, German artist born in Poznan, Poland, that for the last 20 years his work has concerned the commemoration of victims of the German National Socialist movement. Jointly with Andreas Nitz, he elaborated and produced new shapes of monuments, which became internationally known as negative monuments or counter-monuments. Besides the memory of open-air landmarks, his works also belong to the patrimonies of several international museums, such as the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Jewish Museum in New York, the Yad Vashem Jerusalem, or the Judicious Museum in Berlin, among others. So, Horst, it's a pleasure. We are very honored to have you here with us today, and the floor is yours. Have around 20 minutes.
Buenos días, mi castellano.
Good morning. My Spanish isn't great. My English is neither great.
Communicate with you in my way by my work, and I work many years about art and memory, and to work about art and memory in Germany is special because we have to confront that we are the persecutors and not the victims. And so the memorials should be different from the normal memorials for the victims. There are no heroes, and this is a difficulty which Germany has with monument remembering the crimes of the Nazis. I start with my first work I did. Before I worked in abstract sculptures, and I live in Kassel. And in Kassel, 1908, a Jewish entrepreneur, donor, gave a fountain to the city when they built the new city hall. And he was a Jewish entrepreneur. And when Hitler came to the Reichskriegertag in 1939, the Nazis destroyed the fountain because Hitler should not see when he comes to the staircase of the city hall this Jewish fountain, and therefore the activists destroyed it. But then the mayor said there is so much symbolic in it about the world power of the Jewish people, and so, but there's nothing. It was the normal German architect who built the city hall. He built the fountain too, but this obelisk has 12 steps, and then they told these are the 12 tribes of Jerusalem, and it's all ideology of the Jewish ideology. But then in 1965, the city rebuilt a fountain, but they called it the City Hall Fountain, and the name of Ashrod, Sigmund Ashrod, of the donor was forgotten, and in 88, during the Documenta, this art exhibition in Kassel, international art exhibition in Kassel, I rebuilt the sculpture, the pyramid, the obelisk as as a negative form, and people went along and thought, this was the former Ashrod fountain. It would be better when he was in sandstone as a city hall. But then they became very angry when we turned it upside down and sunk it 12 meters into the groundwater in the site, in its place. And you see there's only the negative, the water falls noisy into the negative, and it is now it is a presence of the upsides. The people, the citizen of Kassel got very angry, so much money, and you see nothing. But by this confrontation, I sunk the sculpture into the site, but the story of Sigmund Ashrod, everybody tells the fountain now again, Ashrod fountain, and the murder of the Jewish community in Kassel comes to the surface. It was silence before. Yes, and you see this is later the memorial in New York, the footprints of the towers is the same idea, but gigantic. Here, my work in Kassel, it's a small model for this gesture in New York. Yes, you can step on the fountain now, and the memory or the monument is in the heads. Why is here this negative form in the heads of the people standing on the fountains? It's always, yes, in the heads, it's not the sculpture. They have to think about why Kassel lost this fountain and remembering the Nazi time, because Kassel was the first, was some days, the November pogrom happened in Kassel some days before it happened in Germany, in the rest of Germany. Kassel was always in front in the Nazi time. Yes, here you see I became older when I built it. This was a maquette, the model. It was in '88. All the citizens from Kassel were deported to Riga, and my parents came from Riga. My family came from Riga, and my father administrated as a high forester officer during the Nazi time the forests of the Baltic, of Latvia. And the Jewish people from Kassel, most of them were murdered, killed in these forests. So always the big history becomes catch me in my family history too. That's the power. I think that's the motive that I did this so long, but now I think I have enough. Here is also my, yes, there was a shadow on the Brandenburg Gate in 1997 after the reunification. The Brandenburg Gate is a national symbol of Germany, and I wanted to say, if you use now the Brandenburg Gate as a national symbol, don't forget the other gates the Germans built in the east, the gates of the concentration camps, and my proposal for the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin was to crush the Brandenburg Gate and to spread out the material on the memorial site as a sculpture to walk on it. And the question was, would the Germans sacrifice her national symbol as a Holocaust memorial? But of course they threw me out, they kicked me out in the first round of the competition, but they discussed it because you cannot find a metaphor for the Holocaust. Only we fail always, but more or less, but all we do is wrong. We can do it more or less wrong, but we never get the history. So, and here I stand with with my friend James Young in the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, and it is a big memorial for the victims, of course, and it works also as a touristic point in the center of Berlin, but now nobody speaks about it. The German Holocaust Memorial is now falling apart by itself because they are hollow, the stelas, and now they have to put iron band to, and so they fall. Every stela has this cracks. How do you? And it's a big problem. It's very strange that the Holocaust Memorial now is falling apart by itself, the German Holocaust Memorial. But nobody speaks about the problem, but they have the problem. And I think here you have there are 4 emergency exits here in the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, and I think every national big memorial should have emergency exits. I like this. Here is the synagogue in Eberswalde, a town near Berlin. I was together with Andreas Knitz. The Nazis burned the synagogue, but this was lightning some years ago, and all the neighbors helped to extinguish the fire, and some years later they the Nazis put fire on the synagogue. But it's also a problem. But in the media, the television always use this photograph. And this photograph is not the 9th of November. It's not the pogrom. It was many years before by a lightning, but it is one of such a good photograph. But it is very dangerous because the neo-Nazis know it and tell then that's all not true. You see that it was not true. That it's very dangerous to publish such photos. So here is the foundation. The foundation. No, no. Here the foundation walls, and we built a wall 3 meters high, but it has no window, no entrance, no door. Nobody can enter anymore this place in the center of Eberswalde. We left it, it's about 10 years now, for the birds and the seeds of the trees, and now it's already growing. It's memory with growing, growing small wood, building the volume of the former synagogue. And around there's an inscription with a history of which tells the history of the synagogue and the Jewish community of Eberswalde. This is the synagogue in Poznan, where I was born. The Nazis in 1941 built a swimming pool there for the soldiers, and this swimming pool, public swimming pool, worked until the beginning of the 2000 years. And here you see it. At my from Riga, my parents, my family went during the war to Poznan, and my older brothers and sisters learned swimming there. So again, I found my own family history in this synagogue, and I. Together with Andreas Kritz, it was closed then, the synagogue, and given back to the Jewish community in Poznan. And I had in the palace, in the city palace, exhibition. There's now European Center of Culture, but it was prepared. It was a Kaiser Wilhelm palace, but then it was by the Nazis prepared for Adolf Hitler, and there was an office of Hitler, and so we cut pieces of the swimming pool and decorated and changed Hitler's office now with this swimming pool parts. So we returned it again. So Hitler's swimming pool, Hitler's office became a swimming pool. Here we have Buchenwald. All the concentration camps in this year, they celebrate 80 years liberation, but this was 50 years liberation. The director asked me to mark the first monument. It was a provisorium erected by the liberated prisoners after the liberation, but it worked only some weeks because they needed the wood to build this pitch podium to celebrate the first Mai. So we marked, Andreas Knitz and I, we marked this place with a steel plate, and this steel plate marks the former obelisk, and has an inscription with all the nationalities of the prisoners. There are 60 nationalities in the meantime, because we got a colonial problem under the French people were from Algeria, from Tunisia, and then we had the new situation, Yugoslavia, we had to write Slovenia, Croatia also, and the politicians, of course, there is an instrumentalization. We have a China also there. I had to change the plate and to inscribe not only Turkish but Armenian also, because they go there and the politicians go there and later they go to Berlin to negotiate. It's always the danger that all these monuments are instrumentalized by the politics. As you see here, here Obama is there and Angela Merkel, and it is warmed up to body temperature, to day and night, summer and winter, 37 degrees. It is in the winter without snow. And all we have, the perpetrators, the victims, the human beings, we all have this temperature, and also a survivor of the Holocaust, Margot Friedman, died now several days before with 103 years, and they always went to the schools and told to the pupils, be human being, don't forget you are a human being. That was the message. I guess I can just the human being against the cult of the concentration camp. So. All the memory events take place there. This is the first victims of the Holocaust were not the Jewish people, were the mental ill people from the psychiatric clinics, and the Nazis murdered more than 300,000 by gas, starving, and by injections, and they were all these people were transported through Germany on all the streets by these gray buses, and we, Andreas Knitz and I, we remembered, we casted 2 of these buses in concrete, and one bus blocks blocks always gate to a clinic which exists until today, but there the buses went in and out, and but the other bus we transport along the roads which these grey buses took in the Nazi times, and now it is in Chemnitz. Chemnitz is a cultural city of European culture city this year, and we moved these buses already 21 different stations, and it has already more than 10,000 kilometers. We moved this monument, and it has a wide from 75 tons. It's always, and people can ask, or organization can ask for the bus, and he stays so long as the next organization, the next group wants this and has the money for the transportation. Here, so we come now to the end. I was asked 2 years ago when to change or to build a peace monument out of a war monument from the First and Second World War. And I didn't want to do this, but it was just when the war in the Ukraine began. And then I thought, no, then I do it because it is our problem also. And I took the parts of it was stored because they took it away because they built there a fairy tale place for the Brüder Grimm, for the Brother Grimm. And that was the reason that they wanted to take the monument away. And I put the blocks like gravestones in front of the church and at the other side of the street, and cut from the material, I cut it the letters out to 2 words, why and for whom did they die, because on the inscription is they died for us. But in every war, the soldiers or the people, they die for political power interests. They die always for the power and never for the love. And now there's a crossroad between the two, crossing the street between the 2 parts of this monument, of this why and for whom, with the dates of the war, and there's still place for the next or for the ongoing wars too. You see, this is all the Buchenwald. So the result of all this in Lithuania, on a military cemetery for the First World War, they are done by the German administration 2 stones. One is dedicated to the Russian soldiers, and beside the Russian soldiers, and the other is to the German heroes. The own victims, until today, Ukraine, Russia, the own victims are always the heroes. The other are the soldiers or collateral damage. And I think we have to try to feel for the other side empathy to change this confrontation. We are the heroes, the other are the enemies, and we have to find other ways to communicate. And now here you have, I like this. This was also a result of the process of what we heard before. I think the best moments are if the architects and artists, the colloquium before a monument, when they meet on the side, and you see in the faces, everybody is thinking, what can I do here? What is it? And you should meet there and document all the ideas, but not build it. In 10, 20 years, the next generation should meet again there and develop their own, from their time, their own ideas, and to build a museum for all these ideas, for example, to do a process. And perhaps this, because you never can build a monument for the eternity, you have demonstrated, yes. Oh, yes, and here it's from the ESMA, from Argentina, during the military dictatorship. They are murdered, and they are in the ESMA, in this military school, Los Desaparecidos, and they throw the victims from the airplanes into the Rio de la Plata, and now it is a memorial museum, and there are guardians, and they have this espacio para la memoria, and that is true because the only espacio para la memoria es el humano, el ser humano, por eso es verdad, pero nunca puedes tener seguridad en memoria. La memoria, todo que no.
Memory is all we want as fishermen. As fishermen, what we do is to fish for the past, and memory as fishes. But everything we catch is not the past. It's not the history of the memory, because memory is like the affluent of the river, the movement of the river, and we are, all of us, are part of this movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Horst, for your wonderful presentation that we all have enjoyed. So for finishing this panel, we will call to the table to Sanjin Mihelic, which will perform the lecture Reframing Dissonance, Architecture, Memory and Contested Sites in Croatia. Sanjin Mihelic is a heritage professional with more than 25 years of experience in cultural heritage management, currently serving as the director of the Museum of Arts and Crafts in Zagreb. Between 2016 and 2023, he served as the director of the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb, and between 2021 and 2024 as the president of the Iron Age Danube Route Association, an international association managing a cultural route of the Council of Europe. Since January 2025, he has served as the president of ICOMOS Croatia. So for finishing the panel, Sanjin, when you're prepared.
Okay, so buenas tardes a todos. Primeramente.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you, Ricard, David, Fernanda, for your kind invitation. I'm very happy to be with all of you in such an interesting and important conference. I'm not going to speak in Spanish.
So the question today, or the answers that I'm trying to give, is centers around the title of Reframing Dissonance, Architecture, Memory and Contested Sites in Croatia. So what I intend to do is, in the next, 20 minutes, hopefully, 25, okay, I'll try to be quick, but I'm not very good at that, so I apologize in advance. I'll try to give you a very brief professional background, who I am, to present myself. Then I will explain just very briefly what I consider to be dissonant heritage, not to teach you, because you're all experts here, and we all actually discuss the same topics, but it's always good to know what one's standpoint is. I will briefly mention the topics of reconciliation, closure, and catharsis. I'll give you an overview of a few dissonant sites in Croatia before I come to 3 case studies of dissonant monuments. The first is Kamenska, second is Petrova Gora, and the third one is Goli Otok. The first 2 are actually socialist monuments of post-Second World War Croatia or Yugoslavia, and the third one is a prison, Goli Otok. And I'll end up with takeaways, just a few things to recapitulate what I would like to stay in with you before we part. So, as David has already explained, I'm a current director of the Museum of Arts and Crafts. I used to direct the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb and was the president of another route of the Council of Europe, like Atrium. This is Iron Age Danube route. Just last week we were recertified for those who are in this, in the cultural route business. I consider him to be a heritage manager, and I work a lot with ICAMUS, including I'm doing the technical evaluations, World Heritage Sites, and I'm a current president of ICAMUS Croatia. It was ICAMUS work that actually brought me to this fantastic monument, and I also thank Dora and her team, and I'm using this opportunity to praise you for all the brilliant work that you're doing. Actually, you've captivated my attention, so for the past few years I've increasingly dedicated time, effort, and knowledge to the topic of dissonant heritage. I approached it from a rather curious standpoint as part of the ICAMUS International Committee, Committee for Cultural Tourism. We did this Sustainable Cultural Tourism Plan, and I'm very glad to see that it's progressing. So, bravo, Nora and the team. So, dissonant heritage. Everybody speaks here about dissonant heritage. So, basically, what does it refer to? When we are discussing dissonant heritage, we are actually looking at monuments or places or sites, but also narratives, which are all symbols of things that evoke different emotions in different people, often conflicting, hence dissonant. Dissonant heritage stands in the position to celebrated heritage, you could say, because where one actually invokes shared ideas of identity, the dissonant heritage does completely the opposite. It sometimes highlights and plays on divisions, looks at past injustices and unresolved trauma. When it happens, often there's a trigger, and it's more often than not wars or changes in regime. Colonialism plays a very big role in many parts of the world, and so on. So what do we do with this? We've seen a number of examples, and we're discussing it. So we need to engage with it. Like Daniel said, we cannot just perpetuate the status quo. We cannot just remove it. We need to engage. And it's the culture of dialogue that, not just in this, but everywhere, may lead to positive change. So what does that mean? We need to look if there is a potential for reconciliation. We need to challenge this often always conflicting and often very complex ideas in history. So when I mention reconciliation, why do I do that? Why is it important? Because if we want to come to something that we may term a closure, if we want to move forward, what we need to do is to actually understand how it functions. So where there's dissonance, there are also dissonant and opposing sides. Often one hates or fears the other. So what we need to do is we need to replace these negative emotions by something that we could call non-violent coexistence, coming to terms of that. What we need to do is, instead of remaining in our foxholes and look at the other side, through the lens of our snipers or something, we need to try to build confidence, to build trust. And the closing words that Horst, you used, is we need to develop empathy. These are a few key points if we want to move forward. So these are the stages. So this and another thing that term that Horst you used is the perpetrators and the victims. Obviously, it's not very easy, and it doesn't just come by itself. The trust, the confidence. But if we want to engage in the overcoming of such situations, we need to try to do our best. Otherwise, it's the trenches, it's the status quo, and it's the constant malevolence, and actually we cannot move on. So with trying to achieve reconciliation, we can also hopefully succeed in integrating a past into something that we could term a more cohesive narrative and reduce this emotional tension that may exist. So we are actually aiming at something that you might term psychological closure, which is coming to terms instead of, again, feeding on our fears, hates, and spawning always new conflicts. So it doesn't happen by itself. It doesn't. Time may heal wounds. They say that time heals all wounds, but it takes a lot of time. And human action, human agency is also what is needed. So when can the process of reconciliation provide closure? If it fulfills several conditions. First, when it enables open dialogue. So you need to want to engage in that. Also, when it allows multiple voices. There's not only one narrative. If you have one narrative, that's the dictate. What you need to do is a dialogue. When it leads to public recognition through several methodologies differs, but it's public versus private, of course, like always. And when it can help transform dissonant sites that may have created traumas for others, into places for learning, reflection, and shared memory. When we say shared memory, we have already, what we mean is that we aim at a sort of a consensus towards that. It's okay. So closure is not the same as reconciliation, and there are several elements to it. Closure can hardly be total or uniform. Not everyone in the society will feel that they've achieved closure, and I'm not going to read all of this. It's again, there are dissonant elements in it, and not everyone basically needs to agree what the process of reconciliation actually looks like. One very important element here, which is very often misused, is when wounds that may have healed at one point or were just about to heal are reopened in new political contexts. That's the instrumentalization by modern day politicians or groups and so on. And that's where the danger lies. And that's precisely, especially in this day and age, is resurfacing. The old wounds are just not being allowed to heal. And of course, if that happens, if the stream of not history, if the stream of history is actually again removed into creating new new torrents and misappropriate in that way, then closure will never be achieved. So again, when we think about time, healing all wounds. And there's, of course, the difference between institutional or public and personal or intergenerational reconciliation. So I'm using one example that has very little to do with Croatia or us here, but the institutional, the top-down, the initiative for reconciliation and closure is, I don't know if anybody recognizes this. This is a Gallipoli monument with the so-called Atatürk Anzac speech, which, okay, you cannot read it, but this is what it's a very powerful message, very powerful address that actually tries to bring, and actually succeeds in bringing the opposing sides closer together. They say, well, wounds take time to heal, some may never heal, but coming to terms, accepting that there is a point in time where it's okay to move forward without, again, feeding on this hates and fears and traumas. This is how society moves forward. So, again, something that has been disputed, it has been discussed time and again. For me, at least, it's always a good example of how actually you can extend your hand, make a first step, and try to bring this process forward. So dissonant heritage in Croatia, very briefly, like everywhere, we have our own set of problems, of dissonant heritage sites, dissonant heritage motives, and I'm focusing here because they are most easily felt on the Second and post-Second World War era, with the Nazi puppet regime of the Nazi Germany that was in power in Croatia during the Second World War, then the partisan anti-fascist struggle, and what was happening next in Tito's Yugoslavia. So, the points of dissension, it might help you to say that basically whoever feels anything can be attached to one of the four people that I'm going to show here, because they represent the dominant discourse, the political power at the time over the last 100 years. I don't know if you recognize the King Alexander of Yugoslavia, who this as a point of dissension for present-day Croatia. He stands for the dictatorial, oppressive regime in which, Croatia was ill-fated and mistreated, so to speak. Then what happened? This brought to power this monster, who is Ante Pavelić, the head of this so-called independent state of Croatia, which was not independent, was not even a state. This is a horrible time. Head of the Ustaša regime, responsible for many atrocities towards Jews, Serbs, Roma, and the others. So basically a little Hitler in Croatian terms. So again, the pendulum swings. Many of you recognize this person. This is Tito, of course, Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia, the founder of the Second Yugoslavia, the heroic leader of the partisan anti-fascist movement. He was also a bloody hand, and there were atrocities that happened at the end of the Second World War, and immediately in the post-war period, Yugoslavia, he was the best disciple of Stalin. So it wasn't easy, and for Croats, yes, many people lost a lot, relatives, and so on and so forth. So dissension, some may like him, some don't, but, and the last one, probably you also recognize him, Slobodan Milošević, who was actually the spirit of the bloody breakup of Yugoslavia, so the Serbian leader who started many wars and again paved the way for destruction and for more dissonance to come. So basically these four people are symbols of four different things, and there's virtually nobody who is feeling unhappy and attaches one or another emotion to the dissonant heritage in Croatia, but also elsewhere, that does not ultimately base it on the hatred, fear, adulation, or anything towards one or another of these people. Just a short excursus into developing the idea that dissonant heritage existed from times immemorial. There was always something that was dissonant. There was always something that stood for something, a symbol. So if you recognize this, if you're in Split, this is a part of the Diocletian's Palace, which is on the UNESCO World Heritage List. Us in Croatia love it very much. This is the core of present-day city of Split. You can look at it as a symbol of imperial power that destroyed, eradicated peoples, nations, and so on. Nowadays, no problem whatsoever. Okay, it's been 2,000 years. Much the same happened with places like this, Pula, amphitheater in Pula, one of the best preserved and the biggest in the Roman world. Today brings millions of tourists, well, hundreds of thousands of tourists annually, and nobody has problems with it. I don't know, I guess 90+% of visitors are Christians, but they do not really feel very, very unhappy there because of the persecutions. So they don't hate Diocletian or Julius Caesar, let alone the lions. So no problem. Time. Places like Krakowska, seats of medieval or Renaissance or later powers, feudal lords and so on. Symbols of repression. Repurposed as what? Modern heritage sites. This is a museum, by the way, north of Zagreb, and so on and so forth. Coming closer, this is Kumrovec, Tito's birthplace, and this is Tito's statue. Then, going quickly, this is Jasenovac. This is another one of those monuments from the modernist period in post-war Yugoslavia. Jasenovac is a site of the biggest concentration camp in Croatia. Tens of thousands of people were murdered there. But it's a dissonant site. Dotršina, also in Zagreb, actually a place where Ustaši killed a number of Croats there. Let's move from Tito to Milosevic. Vukovar water tank, a symbol of the Croatian War of Independence, and so on. So there's plenty of examples of dissonant heritage wherever you turn. Moving to case studies. I'll be more quicker than I intended originally, but 3 case studies. First, this one. This is Kamenska monument, Petrova Gora monument, and Goli Otok, the island prison camp. Quickly, I would like to talk, and maybe we can talk about them because all 3 are very instructive. So this is a site. This is a monument built in 1968, celebrating the victory of the people of Slavonia, of course, in the Second World War. You can find about it on the Spomenik database. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Very, very good and informative website. So Spomenik database. Kamenska is a modernist masterpiece. It really is, or unfortunately was, because what happened? This 30-meter stainless steel structure, abstract of course, was ranked among the largest in Europe at the time. And it was a powerful symbol of anti-fascist struggle of the people of Slavonia. This is a region in Croatia during Second World War. However, due to the fact that the Yugoslavia and anti-fascism and positive struggles and were conflated in a way with the aggression on Croatia during the breakup of Yugoslavia, led to a destruction of a number of anti-fascist monuments. So this was in the middle of the War of Independence. In 1992, this was destroyed by the Croatian army, which is very sad, I can say. And this is, you can see, this is a very good, very good Photoshop. What it looked like in the 1970s and how it looks today. There's nothing there. I've chosen this case study because I wanted to stay true to the aim of the conference, and it was also true to approach dissonant heritage through architecture and art. So what happened last year, 2 years ago? A Croatian artist, Sandra Đukić, actually created an exhibition and an installation that it was called The Silence That Tore Down the Monument, that addressed the monument and its unhappy fate. So he did not reconstruct it. He created an installation, and in that way he engaged the Croatian public, the audience, so both the experts as well as the general public, with what it symbolizes, what it stood for, how could it happen that it was destroyed. What you see here is actually a hologram, and the also AR installation that enabled people to see, both on site as well as at the exhibition, what it looked like, and a lot of discussion developed around that. Of course, it's just, like Buzluđa has 1 million tesserae. There's hundreds and thousands of tesserae that we need to build into this mosaic of reconciliation that may lead us to closure. But it's the acts like these that actually make first and the next steps that will lead us to there. So again, I cannot abuse time, so it's one approach to dissonant heritage. It's to incite, to instigate, and to inspire dialogue. Dialogue, if you remember my words, may lead to reconciliation and ultimately to closure. The second example, second case study is I could say Croatian Buzluđa. Petrova Gora monument was built in 1981, so very, very similar to Buzluđa, and it's again a monument to celebrate the victory and uprising of the people of Banja and Kordun, another region in Croatia. So what happened? This is another modernist architectural and artistic miracle. However, due to all of the facts that I've been mentioning, it has become dissonant because the present day powers that be are very hesitant to invest into its renovation or whatever you ultimately choose to do. So this is a status quo due to entropy leads to increasing state of disrepair. So even like that, it is an extremely powerful symbol. However, it has potential to be used, if properly approached, as an even more powerful symbol of reconciliation. And by repurposing it with some renovation, it may become an opportunity to, again, come to terms with what has happened, and instead of creating further divisions, to bring people together. Like Buzluđa, I can argue, and I am arguing, that this monument possesses, alongside its symbolic elements and values, it possesses an intrinsic capital to become a very powerful architectural symbol, architectural monument, as well as a symbol for whatever meanings we are able to eventually ascribe into it. Okay, so this is a vision. I can discuss the methodology of how to do that, but I'm rather choosing the minute or two that I have left into presenting you the third side, which is Goli Otok. Goli Otok is actually an island. It means barren island in Croatia. It's in the northern Adriatic, and it was used for a couple of years after the Tito-Stalin split in 1948 as a political prisoners camp. And it was a very, very powerful element that installed fear into not only Croats but also Yugoslavs during especially the early time of Yugoslavia. I remember going to Petrova Gora as a student or as a pupil, elementary school pupil. I remember that everybody was always talking about Goli Otok, which means that if you did something wrong, you'll end up on Goli Otok. This was really quite real. So again, how to do we just allow it to lay there, to lie there, and to maintain status quo, or are we going to use it? Are we going to approach it to make this a powerful symbol of reconciliation, to make it a place of learning for new generations? Because all of these three sides hold potential for very important messages that every society, in this case Croatian society, may well profit. Again, if it's approached with an open mind and with a clear aim to bring together, instead of what I've repeatedly mentioned, instead of creating new divides. So there's a group that is trying to actively, a civil society group that is trying to actively promote this idea, and I hope to include them and connect also with the others in the Dissonant Heritage Group. Okay, ending up, there's a lot to say about it. You can see the photos, but let me going to the end and try to tell you what I'd like you to remember. Just 3 takeaways, and that's, in this presentation, I focused only on the post-Second World War heritage. There's lots more to come here. So Kamenska, Petrova Gora, and Goli Otok, barren island. If you're interested in this, I'm happy to engage in further discussion and to connect and to ask you for advice, assistance, or partnership into making this dissonant heritage much less dissonant, or move the circle the wheel in a completely different direction. The second takeaway is that reconciliation and closure as well, potential at least aims, in my view, this is what we can aim for when we consider that some sides are dissonant. And the third and the last one, this is a path to catharsis, societal catharsis, like what happened with many societies. And then, Horst, you had a very specific and personal account of that, but what we can consider that Germany has done in the past, it did come through a catharsis with the approach to the Second World War. Resuscitations are not are actually the responsibilities, and we can of very specific groups. With these examples, we do need a catharsis, and again, this is why we're advocating for such an approach that may lead there. So we need to be truthful about it. We need to have inclusive interpretations with multiple voices and not just one narrative, let alone discourse. And bringing into this the engagement with affected communities, trying to educate, to integrate the educational points into that. And of course, culture and art are extremely powerful drivers and, well, methodological tools to use into achieving that. Okay, that's it. I did overstep my limits, but I'm glad I've had this opportunity to present it to you. Thank you very much for your patience, and, well, thanks a lot.